Hi! So it's time for another monthly update with what I've read this month, what I want to read next month, and just anything else that I've been up to in the past month. Obviously it's been a bit of a weird month for everybody in the entire world. So I'll quickly start with what I read in March. It's going to be very quick because I only read, I think, 4 books, and one of those I think I even started like at the end of February maybe, and just finished in March, but I'm not sure, I can't remember. I haven't read a lot. I started this year so well. January and February I read so many books, and then March has just kind of gone downhill. I think it's maybe because everything's just felt so weird and just strange, and it started off being a really busy month. I think this is why it feels so weird, because March feels like it lasted a year. I did stuff in March, like I went to London and stuff, and that doesn't feel like it was all in one month. Like, it's insane. So the first book that I finished in March was Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I listened to the audiobook on SCRIBD, and it was alright. It's definitely my least favourite Alice Oseman book. I've now listened to all of hers. I think every single one of her books now. I've gone from, like, a month ago or something, or a couple of months ago, being like, I have never read an Alice Oseman novel, apart from Heartstopper, to now I've kind of just flown through all of them in one go, because they're all on SCRIBD, and I've just decided to listen to them all in one go. I feel like they're all quite easy listening, so they're quite good to put on just while I'm working or whatever. So I ended up flying through loads. I've had a really good year for audiobooks so far. Like, last year, I think I literally listened to 1 audiobook and it took me the entire year to listen to. So yeah, I've done quite well this year already with listening to like a good number of audiobooks, and mostly Alice Oseman. Solitaire is okay. It follows Tori, who is kind of a side character in the Heartstopper graphic novels. She is Charlie's sister, so if you've read Heartstopper, you'll know Nick and Charlie. Tori is Charlie's sister, and Heartstopper happens, I think, maybe 2 years or something after Heartstopper. So Nick and Charlie have been together for like 2 years by this point, and they appear in Solitaire as well, which is really cool. Like, I really love Nick and Charlie, I adore them, so it was great to see more Nick and Charlie in Solitaire. The story, however, was just a bit meh. Nothing really happens. I do enjoy a book sometimes if there are really good like characters or messages or whatever in them, and if the plot doesn't have like a lot happening in it, then it's not a big deal. But I don't know, I just find this one a little bit boring. I didn't really like Tori very much. I just found her a bit kind of whiny. The story picked up a lot towards the end, like it got really interesting towards the end, and it got to a point where I was just kind of sitting there listening to it, which I don't do very much with audiobooks. I tend to kind of do stuff while I'm listening, but yeah, I find myself kind of just sitting there and listening to it because everything just kind of goes a bit mad towards the end. But for most of the book I was kind of a bit like, I don't really know what's happening. And I kind of missed the narrator. There's the same narrator for I Was Born for This and Radio Silence, and I really like her. She's one of my favourite narrators from listening to previous books as well. And I wasn't a huge fan of the narrator in this audiobook, in the Solitaire one, but yeah, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan. I'd probably give it like 3 stars because it was okay, and I liked getting a lot more of Nick and Charlie and learning a bit more about Tori as well. But yeah, it was just alright. The second book that I read in March was Run Rebel by Manjeet Mann. It is a novel in verse, which is my thing. I love verse novels so much. I've got a whole video actually talking about verse novels. I'll put it in whichever corner it is, I can never work it out. This is about a girl who has grown up in a traditionally Indian family. So her dad especially is very kind of conservative Indian views, and she kind of feels like she has grown up in a prison, so she can't have any friends that are boys, and her dad kind of watches her every move like a hawk. Neither her mum or dad can read or write English, so she is kind of their translator. They're in Britain. They live in Britain, So she's grown up speaking and writing English. So she's kind of her parents' translator, and I think doing that takes its toll on her. Like, she feels like she's kind of in charge of the entire family. Her mum really isn't happy in this marriage. I'm assuming it might have been like an arranged marriage or something. Her mum really isn't happy in this marriage. And she just, well, like, her mum desperately wants to learn. She wants to learn to read and write, but her husband is just kind of like, that's not the job of a woman, that's the man's job. And her job is to just go to work where she makes like a ridiculously small amount of money. And I think she works in like a factory where they dye clothes, and they're basically trying to just live paycheck to paycheck. So the book follows our main character, Amber, and she desperately wants to try and make a change. She starts learning about the anatomy of a revolution in school, and it's all about the steps that people have taken throughout history to kind of start a revolution and make a big change. And this kind of inspires her to kind of think, this is something I need to do. I need to like start putting these things in action, and I need to start kind of, she wants to basically just pave her own life. She knows far too many people who, when they were her age, kind of gave in to arranged marriage and kind of all the traditional views that Amber really doesn't like, and she doesn't want that for herself. But then you get her family telling her that she's kind of all high and mighty and selfish for wanting this, like, for just wanting a different life. So it's a struggle for her. But the book follows her trying to fight against this and kind of pave her own way in life. Not just for her, but for her mum and for any girls that are in her situation as well. She wants things to be different. It just follows her as she tries to make this change. It's so good. I really loved it. It kind of, sometimes you get little flashes of her mum's perspective and her sister's perspective, and it just gives so many different views of how people live in this sort of situation. And obviously it's something that I can't relate to in any way. Like, as a white British person who has grown up in kind of moderate, you know, white privilege, I can't relate to any of the things that happen. But even so, it makes you, like, Manjeet Mann's writing just makes you just root for these characters so much. You desperately want them to do well, and you desperately want her to be able to kind of just get out and escape this really toxic life that she has. Her writing's just so good. I feel like a lot of time in verse fiction it can be difficult to get across what you could get in normal prose, but she does so well, and I'm already really excited to see what Manjeet Mann writes next, because her writing is just incredible and I just love it. I was on the blog tour for this, so my full review is on my blog. I'll link to it in the description below. I talked a lot more about the themes and things in my blog tour post, so yeah, check that out if you want to find out more about this and find where you can buy a copy of the book if you want to. And then the next two books that I read were both books for my book clubs. I had a YA book club and an adult book club. The one for my YA book club was A Pocketful of Stars by Aisha Bushby. My friend Leonie, who kind of runs the book club with me, she works in Waterstones where I run the book club. She adores this book. She was the one who suggested it for the book club, and I did really like it a lot. I just didn't like love it. It was just really good. It follows a teenager, I think she might be a young teenager, like 13 or something, called Sophia. Her mum and dad are divorced, and she kind of doesn't have the best relationship with her mum. It's kind of very on and off. Like, they can be really kind of close sometimes, and then other times they'll just fall out again. And she has a huge argument with her mum and storms out, and then the next thing she hears, her mum is in hospital. And when they had an argument, her mum was saying that she had a really bad headache, and then when she kind of hears she goes back to her dad, and she hears that her mum is in hospital in a coma and she's had a stroke. So she obviously kind of put so much of that on herself. She's like, oh my god, we were arguing and I was shouting at her and maybe I gave her this, maybe like I caused it. She was talking about the headache that came on when I was shouting at her, and she has this on her conscience. She's so worried that her mum isn't going to come out of this coma in hospital, and throughout the whole book she's just got it on her conscience that it was her fault. I feel so bad for her, because obviously that's no one's fault. Like, that can't be, that's not something that can be caused. Like, if it was an underlying thing, it can't have been caused just by an argument. So you feel so bad for her, because she's so young as well. She's only like a really young teenager. Throughout the book, it kind of then turns into a bit of almost magical realism sort of thing, where when she goes to visit her mum and she's on the ward with her mum, she falls asleep and she finds herself in this world that almost feels like a video game. She plays this video game a lot, and this world that she kind of enters in her dream, she feels like is a video game, and she's kind of exploring it and trying to work out why she's there. And she sees her mum and I think maybe her auntie, so her mum's sister, as kids, and she's kind of watching their life as kids, and she gets these missions where she needs to try and find things to help make her mum better, and she truly believes that finding these like kind of artifacts, like finding these little memories and keeping them in a memory box in real life, will help make her mum better. I'm not going to go more into it because I don't want to spoil it, but it brings so many emotions, and it's kind of a middle grade. It's kind of like I can't remember what Leonie said, it's maybe like 9 to 12 or something. So it's a younger end of YA. It's kind of very young YA, more middle grade. And it was really great to have something not so kind of heavy to read. Like, I've read a lot of quite thick YA or even adult books recently, and it was quite nice to have something that was a really easy read, even if it is a very emotional read, because it is aimed at like younger readers. I flew through it really quickly. I don't want to spoil the story, but yeah, it's if you want a book that is kind of, it's written so well and it's got these kind of really interesting magical realism elements. It's got very nice friendships. If you love a book with great friendships, then this is definitely one. I love a book that focuses on really great friendships. And yeah, this one is really good. And then the final book that I read, I don't even know how to talk about. I feel like I should have written a review for it by now, but I still just don't know how to talk about it because I didn't like it, and it's a massively unpopular opinion, I think, that I didn't like it. And that is How to Lose the Time War. I can't remember the authors. Max Gladstone and Amal El Motar? I don't know how you pronounce that name, I'm so sorry. It's very strange. I haven't read anything like it, and I don't think I want to read anything like it again. It's just, it was pitched as, when I kind of read the synopsis, it's kind of like an LGBT romance with sci-fi elements. It's basically, you've got Red and Blue, who are two characters from completely different timelines, and they send each other letters and they fall in love through letters. And I thought that was really cool. And it's kind of building up to, or like they're in the middle of a time war and they know that only one of them can survive because they're on opposite, like opposing sides. Really cool synopsis. However, the way that it's written, I could read entire sections and not know what the hell I had just read. Oh my god, I couldn't understand so much of what was being said. It's so flowery, it's so kind of, I don't want to be mean, but the only word I can think of is pretentious. It's so pretentious. It's this kind of, I don't know, I didn't like it at all. I just couldn't, I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of it because I was reading it. I was reading so many pages and just being like, I don't know what I just read. There were certain bits that then would make sense that were written a lot more simply, but the way that these letters are written, like the whole book is written in the letters that they send to each other, and the way that they write is just so weird. It's just so pretentiously written. People adore it. I've seen so many people being completely in love with it, and I just didn't like it at all. I just didn't get anything out of it. I finished it and I was kind of like, I don't even know what I've just read. I don't know what happened. Towards the end kind of picked up a lot because it kind of, I could actually understand what was going on, but so much of it I just thought was completely pointless. I don't know. I don't really know how to talk about it, but I just didn't like it at all. It's just so flowery to the point where so much of it to me just seemed unnecessary. I think I maybe gave it like 2 stars or something, because there were certain parts that I enjoyed, like there were certain bits of the story that I did enjoy, but I didn't like it. I just didn't like it, and I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. I don't know, if you've read it, can you let me know in the comments if you liked it or not? Tell me if you think it's an unpopular opinion, but I do think it's maybe a bit controversial, because everyone I've seen on Twitter saying about it, like saying that they've read it, seem to have completely adored it, so I don't know, I just didn't like it at all. And that was the last book that I read in March, before all of this stuff with the lockdown happened, and then I just haven't read anything since. I think I read my last book, that book I finished on like the 10th of March, and then I didn't read anything for the rest of the month. So hopefully April, cross my fingers, will be a little bit better and I will actually read more. I mean, 4 books is still pretty decent, especially to read 4 books before the 10th of March. Like, to read 4 books in 10 days was pretty decent, but then I just didn't read anything for the next 21 days of March. I'm not going to set a TBR for April because, again, I don't know how much I'm actually going to end up reading. I have a couple of books that I would really like to read. I've got some proofs that I kind of really want to read and get my reviews out. I'm rubbish at the moment of reviewing proofs on time, so I really want to get up to date with all the proofs that I have. So I might focus on those. I might have kind of like a proof April. A couple of exciting things I just wanted to talk about before I end this. I don't want this to be super long. All these update videos end up being ridiculously long. I am taking part in a live stream on YouTube, a booktube live stream, next weekend. It will be on Saturday evening. It's so exciting. It's been organised read by Jess. I will link to her in the description. She's organised a murder mystery kind of party live stream. It's Alice in Wonderland themed. There are, I think, maybe 15 of us booktubers, and we've all been assigned a character. I'm the caterpillar. And Jess has sent us all character cards with our information on about kind of what we were doing at the time of when the Queen of Hearts jam tarts were stolen. It's going to be a whole mystery of who stole the tarts. It's going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to it. Every booktuber has 5 minutes to talk about what they were doing at the time of the incident, and then all of the audience, so whoever's watching the live stream, can kind of discuss their theories in the chat, and then they all vote in the comments who they think did it. So I think my time for the live stream, I'm going to be on for like 5 minutes at like 9 PM, 10 past 9, something like that. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be so much fun. I will link to the live stream. Jess has actually created the live stream scheduled, like it's scheduled now. So if you want to go to the live stream and click the little reminder bell so that when it happens next weekend, you'll be reminded to come and tune in to the live stream and just have a bit of fun with us on Saturday night and have a little murder mystery party. I'm so excited. And then the final thing that I wanted to mention, I am kind of nervous about it, but I'm also kind of excited to get it going, is I'm starting a new writing project. It's going to be on my blog. It's called Invictus Valley, and it's the story of a cult, a kind of doomsday cult, and the dark kind of history of its leader. And it focuses on a couple of characters that, yeah, they've lived in this cult for their whole life and a lot of things happen, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it's going to be published on my blog each week as like a serialised story. So I don't know if any of you have read Lauren James. She's currently doing a serialised fiction thing at the moment, all about kind of fandom culture, and it's so good. Oh my god. I'll put the link to that in the description. Definitely read it. It's so good. It's like a kind of murder mystery. There's a lot of murder mystery going on in this video. It's like a murder mystery, but based in this girl called Margot, who is wrapped up in this big mystery, and it's just so good. But yeah, I was kind of inspired by that. I've had this story in my head for so long that I want to write, but when I started trying to plan it as a novel, it just wasn't really working. So I was inspired by that to start publishing it weekly instead, as a serialized thing. So the first 2 chapters are going up hopefully today. I'm going to be working on them as soon as I've done this video and edited it. I will hopefully be publishing those today. And then, fingers crossed, there should be a new chapter up on my blog every Sunday. So I'm kind of nervous, but I mean, there's plenty of time for me to work on it at the moment. You can find a full kind of synopsis over on my blog. If you want to go and read that, that would be great. You can also sign up to my email list for it, so every time there's a new update you'll get an email reminder. And then you can also join me on Patreon, where hopefully soon, if I can get ahead on chapters, you can get some chapters earlier than they get published on my blog, and I will kind of share little snippets of other things that I'm writing as well. So yeah, that's really exciting. I'm so excited to get it going. So yeah, I'm gonna end there. I hope you're not having too much of a sucky time at the moment. Everything's a bit weird. I know everyone's kind of struggling at the moment with having to stay at home. I hope you're staying at home. Please stay at home. This video is getting long again. I can't seem to make a short video. I wanted to try and make this short and it just hasn't happened again. I will go and I will see you soon. Bye.